Being human, do you ever wonder what makes us who we are? Our habits, preferences, or where we came from? We are expressing ourselves in thousands of ways every day through our choices. Let's have a conversation with people who are having interesting lives. My name is Alun Walker. I'm a doctor of chiropractic and a human being.
Okay, so welcome to the podcast. In front of me, I've got Anabela Yourell, and she is an entrepreneur. She's a lady with 2 children, married, and she's running 3 businesses at the moment. And not all of them are following the same type of genre. You're running a HR department, and you're also running 2 fitness, but for ladies.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you've been doing that for several years now, running these businesses. Can you tell me a little bit about yourself and where you came from? And later on, I'd like to know a little bit more about how you became so entrepreneurial.
Okay, so my parents are from Portugal. They emigrated to this country back in the 60s. And I was born and bred in London with my brother. And I met my husband in a job, and we got married. We moved in together, and 7 years ago, we left London and moved to Daventry. And it was as a result of the move, actually, that I decided that I needed more flexibility in my life. I had at the time, I had a 2-year-old and a 7-month-old, thereabouts. I kept getting calls from the nursery to say, pick up your kids because they're ill. I was in a HR role. I've been in HR for 20 odd years, and I went home to my husband. I'd been in the job for about 3 months, and I said to him, I can't take this anymore. I keep getting anxiety. Every time the phone rings, I think it's the nursery, because it was. And we had a chat, and the move from London to Daventry gave us a little bit of financial security, because things are a bit cheaper in Daventry than they were in London. And so I decided to set up my HR business, which I did in July 2017. And that's where my kind of starting up my own business stemmed from.
So with your parents, do you think you gained anything from them and their sort of their characteristics? You know, what did your father do?
Yeah, so, my parents emigrated here for a better life. I think that's why most people leave the country of origin. It's because they want a better life. They were poor people. My parents only had primary school education. When they came to this country, they were effectively servants. They worked for lords and ladies. My mum was the cook and maid. My dad was the butler and chauffeur. And they did that for many years. And they were grafters. They still are grafters. They've retired back to Portugal now, but now my dad is and my mum are happily cultivating their own food in their land, because that's what they like to do, and that's how they're
like farmers.
Yeah, effectively.
Were they farmers in Portugal originally?
Yeah, so my family have a background in farming. That's not what my parents did as they were growing up, but they helped out with their parents and stuff. So they're familiar with crops and stuff like that. So now my parents, they grow their own lettuce, their own beans, their cabbages, and they're very happy doing that, and that's how they spend their time now. And to be honest, with the cost of living, it helps when you grow your own crops. I did learn a lot from my parents. There are a few things. My parents always said to me, save, so that when you want to buy something, you've got the money to buy it, rather than save because you want to buy something. So that's really stuck in my way of being. The
difference today, isn't it, where if you want something, you just borrow the money from somewhere.
Yeah.
Credit is everything.
So my parents only ever got a bank account when they bought their first home, which was a long time after they'd been already working. It was a different time back in the day when they first came here, and they had a bank account, but they didn't do credit. My parents are very, particularly my dad, is very adverse to paying credit card companies interest. So I have a credit card, for example, and I spend on my credit card, but I do it in order to earn points because I get free money from it. But I pay my credit card off every month. I loathe to pay interest on anything because it's wasted money. And so that's something that they've really instilled in me. And for them, education was everything. I think because they didn't have an education, so they believed that education was everything. I actually quit my degree when I went to King's College.
King's College, what were you studying?
So I was in King's College in London doing computer science. I didn't enjoy it.
You had a loan, or your parents?
No. So my parents, fortunately, they worked very hard, and they put myself and my brother through a further education, and they paid for it. In the sense that they didn't take out loans to pay for education. Ironically, my year that I went to uni was the last year of the grant, if we can even remember that long ago, that you used to get money for free to go to university. That doesn't exist anymore. So I went to King's. That's where we were. I went to King's College for 2 years, and I just didn't get the subject. I didn't enjoy it. I'm one of those people that if I don't get something, why do it? And so I quit my degree, much to breaking my parents' heart, and decided that I was going to take some time to figure out what I wanted to do. So before I told my parents I'd quit my degree, I got a job, because I knew that when I went home to tell my parents, they would say to me, just because you quit your degree, don't think you're going to be sitting at home all day doing nothing. So I got myself a job, and that job happened to be in HR. Never heard of HR before. Did that for a little while.
How long?
So I had a year's contract. When it came to the end of the year, I couldn't get another HR job because I didn't have a qualification in HR. So I went back to uni. I did a postgraduate diploma in human resource management. I did contract work for about 4 years. I wanted to learn how to apply HR differently according to the type of business. So I learned to adapt my style, my HR knowledge, according to how the business operated.
Like what sort of example do you get? What sort of?
So for example, I worked in a school, which is where I met my husband Eric. I worked for a stockbrokers. I worked for the British Transport Police. I worked for local government. And by going to work in different businesses, I learned how to apply HR according to how the business operated. So I believe that helped me adapt my style to wherever it was that I was going to work, so that I could adapt to the way that they did HR.
Different responsibilities within them cultures.
Yeah, exactly. And they were different sizes as well. So that's how I progressed my HR career. And then from there, I went to work for a timeshare company, very different type of business. That was my first kind of employed job. And then after I left them, I went to work for Just Eat as their head of HR. When I joined Just Eat in 2010, they were 50 employees. And when I left in 2015, there were 1,500 employees.
They must be so pleased with you.
So that was a great experience. And it was, I think it was the experience of changing different types of businesses and the exposure I had that gave me the confidence that I could deliver HR for smaller businesses in the variety of sectors that I support now, in my own HR consultancy, and that facilitated kind of that experience. So
amazing amount of confidence you would gain from working with those large corporations, I imagine.
Yeah, so particularly the timeshare business and Just Eat, I would class them as more commercial businesses, and I would say that I am a commercial HR consultant, that my approach is commercial, understanding what the business requires and then laying out the different options available to them, both from following the law to the letter to being more commercial in terms of the approach that they take and what the risks are involved in that. Because sometimes the law isn't the right approach for the business. That's not to say they're breaking the law. It just means that if an employee were to take the business to court, it might cost them a little bit of money to resolve the problem, let's say. So that's the more commercial approach.
Yeah, so just if you don't want me going back, I'm quite interested in the change of work that your father had with, farming, then working within obviously a wealthy family, and working with a chauffeur driver, supporting them. What did he do after that? Or so my dad, it's funny because my dad talks about not being educated because he didn't go to school, but my dad is one of the most intelligent people I know.
So he was a stonemason when he was in Portugal as well. He went to Angola for the army. I mean, that in itself was an experience. And he was there for 4 years. You know, he was a butler and chauffeur. And then, so he worked for a Jewish family for many years, about 18 years before the old lady died. And then after that, he wanted to work for himself. So he did the knowledge and he became a London black cab driver. Yeah. Which in itself is like doing a degree. You know, it's very meticulous, and it involved a lot of work, both on his part and on the family's part, because my mum and I used to practice what they called at the time the runs. I don't know if they still refer to them as that way. And so he would go out on his bike. So his routine was he would work for a family or for a private company to earn money. And then in his spare time, he would be out on his motorbike, learning his runs.
7 days a week.
7 days a week. And he did that for 3 or 4 years.
Now, I understand as well with the black cabs, the police, the Metropolitan Police, who actually put them through that, they're pretty meticulous and put a lot of pressure on them to see if they can actually break these people who are doing it, because the job it's a very responsible job. It's in the capital of the UK, and they only want people there that can actually do the job and do it properly. Maybe a little bit different to today. Things have changed a bit. Very
different to today. It was heartbreaking actually to watch what happened at the time that they licensed minicabs, because they just it almost devalued what the black cab stood for, and then Uber came in. And that, I think, personally, I think it's destroyed the black cab value and the industry, because, you know, it's not recognised that you can get into a black cab without a sat-nav and the driver will know how to get you from A to B. You know, the not necessarily it will always be based on the shortest route, but if that shortest route isn't available, the black cab driver acts like a sat nav and will know a different way to go. You know, and I used to remember hearing my dad come home disappointed that, you know, he was driving around looking for obviously people wanting to get in, and they would be, you know, an Uber driver would pull up and pick them up. You know, and when you think how much time is invested in learning the knowledge, when you think about how much the insurance costs, when you think that a new black cab costs 50, 60, 70 grand to buy, and here you have drivers driving through Uber where they're not registered. Okay, Uber might do some checks, but the police check the black cab drivers. There's a recourse as well. So if you have a complaint, you go to the public carriage office. It's just not the same level of service. But
an Uber driver has not been tested with character. I had a friend who actually did the knowledge, and he would tell me several times, you know, that through his experience of doing the passing the different tests, that sometimes they would just throw them out even if they passed. They just say, no, you failed this time. Yeah. And just like that, just to see if they could break these people, if they were strong enough to be able to do it. It always amused me, but I thought, wow, what a thing to do, to actually be tested at that level so you can drive a vehicle to pick up the general public and do a proper job. I think it's amazing. Yeah. And so what did he do after the black cab?
So he didn't. So he did that for about 15 years. He caught COVID just as lockdown happened. So around the 1st of April, he was hospitalised. He was 70 years old. He was in hospital with 50% oxygen levels for 5 days. We actually thought he was going to die. It was a very dark moment for our family, as I'm sure it was for many families around that time. And when he came out of hospital, he said to my mum, what are we still doing here? Why don't we just retire and go back to Portugal? So that's what they did. At the end of that year, they packed up, and they've never been happier, if I'm honest. And I'm relieved and actually quite delighted to see my parents enjoying their retirement, because they worked really hard for the whole time that they lived in this country to make a better life for themselves and for myself and my brother.
And what about your mother, if you don't want me asking? What did she start off doing?
So my mum came over before my dad did, because back in the day you had to have a work permit already in the country before you could enter. So my aunt was already working here. She got my mum the job originally as a maiden cook. My mum's a brilliant cook. Yeah.
What's her favourite thing to cook?
It's more about what my favourite thing is of what she does. She cooks all sorts. She worked for Greek families. Obviously, she knows how to cook Portuguese food. She worked for Lebanese people. So there's a variety of what
Jewish.
she can. And Jewish, yeah. So
certain things she wouldn't be cooking in certain houses and other places it would be.
And she often did food for banquets and stuff like that, because the type of people she worked for often held things in their homes because they were either diplomats or they were lords or ladies. So there was often functions that she would prepare foods for, so she worked, we call it in the domestic, is how we describe it. And then after I was born, originally both my parents lived in, so they lived with the families that they supported. And then at some point they moved out and they were given a council home. And then at some point, I'm trying to think, so my brother, she worked for the last family for about 25 years. So it's quite a long time. He was a famous pianist. He's still alive, actually, still playing. He's in his 90s now, for a famous pianist that lives in Hampstead. And she was with him until she retired. And she was the housekeeper. And she would often cook his meals and do stuff for them as well. So
do you think it's that when you're a member of a family like that, you are really a member of the family?
In terms of the family that she was with, yeah, absolutely. So she's still in touch with them now, even though she's retired. When she comes to the UK to see us, she will get in contact with them. She's in contact with the housekeeper who they hired after my mum left. She still speaks to their children who are all grown up and have children now of their own. When you're with a family for 25 years, you're part of the family as far as we're concerned.
You get to see things, don't you? You get to support each other, I guess.
Yeah.
Even though it's an employee boss type scenario, ultimately, probably to get the best out of it, it needs to be feel differently to that.
Yeah, and she wouldn't have stuck around for 25 years if they weren't the right type of family for her either. So it was a good relationship. Yeah.
And then your brother, you said he has a degree?
Yeah, so my brother went to university to do a psychology degree. Ironically, he doesn't work in that field. I think that happens to a lot of people go to university. He had hoped to, but he didn't find the path that way. So he works for an employee benefits company and has done as a project manager for quite a few years now.
Similar to you then?
Yeah, similar, not so much. No. Project management is more about implementation and bringing a project together to roll it out. And he does that very successfully for the company that he works for. So he's doing well.
Children, I guess. Have you got children?
My children?
No.
Him?
With him, yeah.
Yeah. So we have my niece. She is 4 months younger than my daughter. So it's funny because my parents, when they planned their retirement, just thought that they were going to go to Portugal and that was that. And then in 3 years, they had 3 grandchildren.
Wow.
And my mum even said to me at the time, she said, gosh, I hadn't even factored in grandchildren. And then we've had 3 in 3 years. So my 2 are 20 months apart and Livia was born 4 months before my daughter was born. So yes, they're all very close in age, and it's quite nice to see actually that they all have a very good relationship between the 3 of them. Yeah,
so names. I know we always have fun with, because I think you've got the longest name of someone I've ever met. But I know that with Portuguese culture has a certain culture of taking when the children are born, that you take on board the names in a different way to we do here. Yeah, so my surname before I got married was Pereira Santos. Pereira was my mother's maiden name. Santos was my father's surname. And then when you get married, you just keep adding. So when I got married, my husband was Yourell, so I became Pereira Santos Yourell, which is a nightmare when you fill out forms. And even on my bank card, and spelling,
they can't fit all the letters and the spelling. And what makes it worse is that the Portuguese alphabet has only 23 letters. It doesn't have Y. So my surname starts with a Y. My husband's part starts with a Y. So that's always confusing. And we don't have double L in Portuguese either, which is why Anabela is spelt with one L. And I have that in my husband's part of the surname as well. So it's always interesting when people try to pronounce my name in Portugal because they can't.
Yeah, because the things like Anabela would be, people would think of, in the UK certainly, more of an Italian type of name.
Yeah.
And so they're always going to add two L's in there, definitely.
Yeah.
No problem with that at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, so when you were living in the Daventry area?
Yeah. So I live on the Borough Hill side of Daventry. It was...
That's been quite a project for you.
In terms of my
garden.
My garden. Oh, my garden. Oh, dear. Yes. So we bought a family home with a massive garden, and it's not a family-friendly garden. We only use about a third of it. So for the last 2 years, I got quoted £90,000 to redo my garden, which I did not want to spend, nor had I saved for, and nor do I want to spend it in that way. So I decided that I was going to do it myself, and so I have been digging out my garden for quite a while now. It's getting there, but it's still a project. And yeah, I have contemplated contacting those garden shows, Redesign Your Garden, or Garden SOS or something like that, to see whether or not someone wants to come and give me a hand, because it's quite the challenge.
I don't think they're always interested in gardens like yours, large and also on a slope. Is that right?
Yeah, because my garden's got 3 tiers, and so I'm trying to remove one of the tiers to make it more functional, so that we can
And
make
the children
most
help
of
you
it.
with this?
Absolutely not. No, nor does Eric. To be honest, I think it's more work on their part than if I just do it myself. So yeah, and I like a bit of heavy lifting, so I don't
Well,
mind.
it keeps you fitness, which is something I want to talk to you about in a moment, really. How did you manage to get to be running a HR business and then start to own these gyms?
Okay.
And why?
Yeah. So I've always been into fitness. I swam when I was younger. I've played tennis. I used to play rugby when I was at school. I loved PE. Always been in an overweight body, but I loved fitness. So I was probably the fittest person around. I just didn't look like the fittest person because of what I looked like. You
have more of a Portuguese body with Portuguese parents?
Yeah, I take after my dad's side of the family, that's for sure. Yeah, so I went through my own transformation in 2019. So in 2010, I had a work-related accident that I ended up having sepsis. That resulted in 6 operations in 4 years when I couldn't exercise and you're still eating. So I went from being active to inactive, but didn't change my dietary lifestyle. And then immediately after that, I had 2 children 20 months apart. So my weight ballooned. I got to 17 stone. In 2019, I decided to do something about that. And I lost 5.5 stone, which was great. And at the time, so when I moved to Daventry, I needed to make friends. I mean, when you're in your 30s, where do you go to make friends? It's actually really
difficult. You've come from London.
Because I moved from London, right?
Yeah.
So left all my friends behind. But I wanted to be more social. So I thought, actually, I enjoy fitness. Let me join some sessions. So let me go and find some classes to do. So I did. But the trainer who I was with decided to give up what he was doing just before lockdown hit. So then lockdown happened, and we were all isolated. But I still had this desire that I needed to get, some fitness, something social. I don't like working out by myself. I've had a gym in my garage since I moved. I rarely go in there, have all the equipment. I rarely use it because I'm a social creature. I like to be around people. It motivates me to work out. So I started looking again, probably around September 2020. And I came across an ad. Ironically, the ads I run for my own gym now. And it was the ad for Fitter Body Ladies in Daventry. And the gym itself was opening in October 2020. And so I applied and I got accepted. And I was one of the first people through the door into the gym I now own in Daventry. I was a member for 18 months, really bought into the ethos of Fitter Body Ladies. I love the community spirit that we've created and that we have. And when Eric and I, because my parents are Portuguese, we tend to go to Portugal every year in the summer. Frankly, it's cheaper to go to Portugal for 6 weeks when the kids are on holiday than to pay for holiday clubs. Mm-hmm. Can you believe it? So when we were in Portugal, Eric and I always spend at least half a day to strategize the future. Because without plans, what are you working towards? And it's always good to have a goal. Whether those goals materialize or not, that's not the point. The point is to have something to work towards. Mm. So every year we talk about, what would retirement look like? Where are we going? What we're trying to achieve? So I think it was February. No, it was around sometime in 2021. We had a conversation about retirement and semi-retirement. And wouldn't it be lovely dreaming? Wouldn't it be lovely to retire when the kids go to uni, or semi-retire when the kids go to uni? So that would give us about 12 or 13 years. But what would we do? Okay. I've always been into fitness, and I thought, okay, well, maybe we open a residential boot camp in the Algarve. I love the heat. So I'd be sunny, I'd be in a country where it's sunny. I speak the language, and the property prices are cheaper. So, why not dream about doing that? But in order to do that, I would need credibility. I would need to be in the fitness industry for some time, to add credibility to what I was trying to do. So I approached Alex, who owns the franchise for Fitter Body Ladies. At the time, she was running the Daventry gym. And I asked her, how long does it typically take to qualify as a fitness coach? She put me in touch with the people who run the course, the level 2 gym instructor course called, the company's called Parallel Coaching. And I actually qualified as a fitness coach in 2 months, and I got my qualification.
Wow, that is proper.
I did a lot of work.
Yeah, but
yeah, that was.
It doesn't surprise me knowing you that you were able to do something that would normally take 2 years.
And you know what? It was so. I think when you're so interested in a subject, you learn so much quicker. And because I've always been into fitness, learning about the anatomy and physiology in the way that I did cemented. It just explained everything I knew about the end result, but how to get there.
You just
and
had
what
to join
the body
those
was.
dots up.
It joined all the dots. It was fascinating, and I absolutely loved it. So then I said to my husband, well, being a fitness coach for 10 years before I opened my residential boot camp would give me credibility. But what if I was a gym owner for 10 years? How much more credibility would that give me? So that planted the seed. So I approached Alex to find out where she was in the franchise for Daventry, because I knew that it wasn't her intention to keep it because she's the franchisor and she was still looking for a franchisee. So I met with Alex and Ricky, her husband, that runs the franchise with her. And that was in June 2022. And in August, the 1st of August 2022, I became the owner of Fitter Body Ladies Daventry. I love what I do. I genuinely do love. I love my ladies. I love what I do. I joined Fitter Body Ladies for business. And I think that when you set up a business, you can be passionate about what you do, but ultimately it is a business. And so my goal for my Fitter Body Lady business, Fitter Body Ladies business, is not to own one gym. My plan is to own 6.
Okay.
And that's where I'm going. So 10 months in, well, we're about 11 months in now, but at the point of 9.5 months, I had already purchased gym number 2. So now I am 2 gyms into 6.
I don't think the franchisor Alex has ever seen anything like you before. Absolutely, probably the most interesting entrepreneur I've actually ever met, for the speed of growth that you're going through. Can I ask you a question about chiropractic?
Of course.
So what was the reason why you started using chiropractic?
So I have used physios in the past. I've been to the osteopath. I have had different types of treatment. Never used a chiropractor before. And I came across some adverts. I looked at the reviews, and I had a problem with my shoulder. And Einstein, there's a thing from Einstein that says, if you keep doing the same thing over and over again, why would you expect a different result? And so I like to try new things, because I think that that's how you learn, and that's how you find what works. And so I thought, I got this problem with my shoulder. The physio hasn't helped in the past. The osteopath hasn't helped in the past. Let's try a chiropractor. And frankly, it was the best thing I ever did.
Oh, thank you very much. Yeah, it was actually myself that you
It
found,
was
wasn't
you,
it?
Alan.
Yeah,
Funny
yeah.
that.
Yeah. Are you happy to talk about the sort of problems that you were having?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
So
So if you recall, when I came to see you, I came for my shoulder, and you very kindly informed me that I had one leg longer than the other. My hips were not aligned. Later on, we corrected a twisted spine, was it?
Yeah.
My rib cage wasn't quite quite
torsion
right.
going through the rib cage.
Yeah, that's it. My shoulders were out of kilter. It was I was a mess, which is no surprise, right?
Not really. Anyone who's been using sport right the way through their life, and to include some of the ball sports, they're going to get some problems.
Yeah, and 2 children.
Exactly.
Childbearing as well. So yeah.
And one of the things I sort of organised with you before we came on, didn't we, that we promote a health talk that we're doing in July. I'm hoping that you still want to do that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So 3rd of July at 7:30 at Reach for Health. We're doing a health talk there for the people of your gym, for my chiropractic. What should we call them? I was going to say fans, but actually the people that are using chiropractic and who use the Daventry Chiropractic Clinic. But also putting it out there for people who want to get involved, who want to come and listen to a health talk. They're very welcome to come along to Reach for Health. It's at the Rugby Club in Daventry. Like I say, arriving at 7:30, all are welcome. I think I want to wrap up now. This has been episode 3 with Anabela Yourell. I'm really pleased that you came along. Thank you so much for your time.
Very
and
welcome.
I hope that we can invite you back in the future.
Of course.
Fantastic.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So if you've enjoyed the podcast, then please like and subscribe. And you can also check us out on YouTube.